The third and final truth. Well, it is something you must learn. I understand that the truth hurts. It's hard for me as well. It feels like building up a sandcastle for years only to kick it over once it's done. Doing something like that is beyond agony to deny the efforts of the past. But I want to make things right, no matter the cost. The final truth is... B's voice is cut off, only static remains. When I shut my eyes, I feel like I'm in another place altogether. I see a different world, one I had belonged to. I think I remember doing something there, hoping to save someone else's life. But here I am now. What's the point of saving an employee's life if you're just gonna watch them die the very next day? What's the point of delaying the inevitable? Those who work here have no future. None of those little things called plans and dreams. No self-reflections, no hopes to become a better person tomorrow. All of that's a luxury they can't afford. I must wake up and endure yet another day. Why do I have to bear the pain and get through it all, knowing tomorrow is going to be just as dreadful? We're just lemmings running straight for the edge of the cliff. Speaking of, could we get a vending machine for beer? If we're gonna die, might as well get wasted before we drop dead. You know I can't do something like that. Don't get out of line, Netzach. Consider this a friendly warning. You know what's coming if you utter such useless nonsense one more time. Oh, I'd sure love to see you make it happen to me, ma'am. Yeah, just keep ignoring me all you want. How typical. Netzach's next mission is basically the same as his first, except instead of dying, no panicking. Again, pretty simple. Basically just play the game the way we've been playing. We've had a couple panics, but as long as we're careful not to have someone panic, they won't panic. That is the dumbest thing I've ever said. Continue to expand Netzach. It's literally the only option now. That's what happens when you do all of HOT in a row. And we have to choose our first upgrade for Netzach. All of his upgrades have to do with improving the way your healing works. Either run the regenerators even while something's in the main hot room, which is they currently turn off when like Punishing Bird is there. If you pick this upgrade, it'll run at half efficiency. Increase the amount of HP the regenerators restore, or increase the amount of SP they restore. I'm choosing HP, the increasing amount of HP they restore, because that is by far the best one. End of story. Hello and welcome back to Lobotomy Corp. Last time we picked up our first wall level abnormality. It's the current unknown here in the situation. This time we'll have B and Bong Bong work on that while we continue training up everyone in training. And probably have to do Marina what she was doing yesterday. Add a new employee, Clud. That's as close as blonde spiky hair as I could get in this game. Oh, why is all the hair default to dark? And your Becca could hit level 3 Temperance, which is not good because she was supposed to stay at level 2 so she could work with this. Apparently I wasn't paying enough attention. So I'll probably have her train Temperance with Void Dream or something. But other than that, let's get into it. Dimensional Refraction variant is a WA abnormality with a cooldown counter of 2. It does white damage and its best work rate is in Insight. All of its other works are identical at 40%, but Insight is at 45% at level 3, and that only rises as you level up your Insight. This, because it does white damage, it also means it's a good Insight trainer, therefore it is just a very good Insight trainer in the walls. Might be the best overall wall at Insight training, actually. It has a cool thought counter of 2, and this counter decreases on a bad result or when an agent takes longer than 40 seconds to finish a work. When its cool thought counter hits 0, it breaches, teleporting to a random spot in the department and then choosing a room to head to. When it'll move slowly towards that room and deal red damage to anything that touches it. Overall, it's a fairly simple suppression. It just has a bit too much health for our facility right now, but as our weapons get better, it'll just become easier and easier to deal with. Like, mechanically, it's simpler than even some tests. It's just that you just have to be it might take a little while. And I was being impatient in the test footage, so you will see a lot of death If there's one really bad thing about it, it's its gear. It only has a weapon, not a suit. However, its weapon is pretty good. It is literally the one Sin's weapon, but with plus 10 to both its min damage and max damage. So instead of 5 through 7, it's 15 to 17. And it also has damage, no damage fall off against higher level abnormalities, unlike one sin. Well, besides against Alephs. That is. Its gift looks nice, but it doesn't really anything to write home about. It's just a +6 to prudence. Overall, if your facility needs prudence training, pretty good. As long as you can accept having no suits from it. I kind of wish it had suits right now because we still really need good suits, but whatever. And now it is time for failure montage again, in which I forgot to actually have people set up to work on a wall abnormality because I'm just used to brute forcing them from my previous playthrough with like whatever gear I had on me. But we don't even have any wall gear at all, so I don't know why I thought I could do that. Bong Bong and B were really wearing Teth armor, and B was wearing white weak Teth armor. So shockingly, they panicked, and I want to finish Netzach's mission. And this one, Clud is now wearing the white weak armor, and Woodsman still does white damage, so shockingly, Clud could not withstand all that white damage being thrown at him. Despite the fact that he is the protagonist of the hit game Final Fantasy VII. I mean, I guess he wasn't really mentally stable in that game either. Epic Final Fantasy joke. And then Bong Bong just panicked again. Wow. I sure did good at that work, as I like to say. And then, I probably should have cut out this loading screen, but I am bad at thinking things through. So I don't have much to say, because I wanted to show that I learned from my mistakes of losing 3 times in a row. I did swap out equipment between this, and so I caught us running wearing white weak armor in Club 2, but this is my second swap out, or maybe my third. This is my third. I mean, Clud was because I switched him to wearing Beak, because that's always just white. I remembered that Nameless Fetus's equipment gives you half damage from white, because Bong Bong is less SP than B. It makes it a lot better than Porcubus's. I don't think either of them would be able to panic now. Wa abnormalities have a special gimmick that lower levels don't have as well. You'll see it pop up when I'm done working with dimensional refractional variant. I couldn't remember its name for a bit there. It's a long one. I just call it DRV in the files. So that 4% that popped up after they were done, after B was done working, is called a Quothoth overload. It's something that walls and Alephs have. Any work that's done with dimensional refraction variant until the next meltdown level has a 4% lower chance of succeeding. And it goes up by 4% each time you work on it. So you can't just milk WAs like you could HEs and below as easily. In the late game you can brute force past this pretty easily, because it caps out at minus 30%, but for right now, it's definitely a major threat to our ability to work on it efficiently. I don't want to see it get higher than 12%. Which means it'll take a lot longer for us to get all of its gear than it typically does. And it only has weapons, it doesn't even have any armor. So working for walls until we get better gear will force us to go longer in the day if we're trying to get all done in one day, which I am, always. The Quothoth overloads, if you work on them while they're melting down, it does not increase. But if you are working on them while the meltdown is happening, I believe that they are at 4% on the next work on the meltdown. That's probably not the best way of phrasing that, but it'll probably pop up in the Let's Play, and you can observe what I mean through that. Essentially, if you're just don't work on walls that you want to be milking for gear right before a meltdown, so I'm always going to wait for them to be done working before I work on it again. Before I start a meltdown, I mean. Words. Walls are even more box efficient than HEs, by the way. Like, the max for most HEs is somewhere around 18. The max for this is 22. Pretty good. In general, we want to start picking up more WAs than anything else, and there are a fair bit of WAs, so it should be pretty likely that we're even just randomly rolling a dice. Or a left, so we could probably start picking up a left sometime soon. Crimson Dawn is no longer enough of a threat to us for me to prepare for it ahead of time. We can handle whatever breaches, and really the only like nasty stuff would be one landing on Nameless Fetus or one landing on Woodsman, because that means we couldn't work Woodsman or we'd have to sacrifice someone to the Fetus, but neither of those things happened. Also, because Moraine was working on Porcubus, as soon as she finished the work she went to murder the Dawn. That's why I didn't order anyone to fight that one in information, because I knew that would happen. I planned for Moraine to kill it. It's called knowing how game working. That's how you phrase that. Moraine's just bouncing between the 3 different stats, because Porcubus is good at training everything besides Justice. Not great at anything, but good at those. And then Dramatic Cut. I'm always going to react really slowly to it. We're preparing for another Green Noon. As is typical, we're moving everyone up to Control because it's very easy to keep them away from it, but it's also a nice central location. What I'm trying to say is, Control is just an easy place to defend newbies in. So it makes it a very nice spot for tough ordeals to get everyone to gather. And Claude, as the most fragile newbie, starts the ordeal. So many of the Green Noons wound up in like the same area. All of them spawned on like the same side of the map except for the training ones. B and Bong Bong are both wearing red weak suits, so I'm not sending them in to fight. As is typical for Green Noon. Now I have that, but I have the entire fighting force selected with a box, so I can just order them to click by right-clicking on another Noon. So that's what I do. Unlike yesterday, where I had the luxury to avoid a Noon just by advancing through ending the day early, I could still do that here, but I want to finish getting the hammers, and I only have one, I believe, at this point in time. And by the hammers, I of course referring to its weapon. Punishing Bird got shot a bit. He doesn't have too much health before he gets angry, so... And he doesn't get angry when abnormalities shoot him, sadly. But he's going back to his cage. The Regenerate wasn't active while Punishing Bird was in there, so it made it take a bit longer. Even though the healing is like, I think it's doubled. It's a Netzach's upgrade? I don't know, it might be a little lower than that. It's just an upgrade, I don't really pay that much attention to however big the increase is. It is nice to have, though. It's just that it's less of a priority than Hod's massive buff to training. Like, I credit that buff specifically to how fast you've been able to cap or get level 5 in a bunch of our stats. This is the last Green Noon, so I started to order people back because all the safety people weren't involved in the fight. I ordered them back first. And everyone else is going back to their departments. Since there's no fancy working today, I don't have to worry about people not being where they're near abnormalities they've been working on. Woodsman also hit bad results at some point in the day, where I ordered somebody to work on him who had more than 2 temperance. I wasn't really paying attention, so it's difficult to say what actually happened. So Claude's moving over to work with Void Dream for temperance. Bong Bong and B are still alternating on this, just because that way I can work while they're it's just nice to do that, so you always have on at full health to work for the tougher abnormalities. There's no reason not to. I mean, you have plenty of employees. Just ensure someone won't panic or die. Doesn't really ensure it, but you know what I mean. Bong Bong almost certainly won't, because Nameless Fetus's set is really, really good against white damage, just it's that there's barely any white damage in the game compared to the other sources, and it's not really super dangerous. But I mean, most of the white stuff doesn't breach, switches to a different damage type upon breaching. Like Woodsman does white in containment, but red when it breaches. Same thing for DRV. And there's no white damage ordeals so far. All of the ordeals do red, I think. Except for the violets, which do black, now I think about it. This is just an experiment with the last work of the day to see how much I would fail at 12% because instead of trying to avoid. We have enough boxes to get everything, and this is the last work because of that. Bong Bong's taking half damage. They would have almost certainly panicked by this point. And they come close to panicking, kind of, even with the half damage. I get a bad, the first bad of the day, decreasing its close health counter to 1. But I could just end the day. We've had some pretty good goes today overall. B is at level 5 and maxed out her Prudence. Christopher did a thing. I don't even remember what we did. Moraine hits at level 5 in 3 different stats in one day, just because of bouncing between them on Porcupus. Bong Bong is also maxed out Prudence. And Claude is maxed out Temperance. A lot of stat maxing out, but that tends to what happens once you have training up and running. Pretty good day overall, and we've gotten Netzach's mission cleared. It only took 4 attempts at the same day to get through without someone panicking. Well, I guess this happens when you pick up a white damage wah as your first wah right before that mission. Let's not pick a wall, hopefully, because this is a choice between 3 tools, and the tool walls, besides one of them, which probably won't show up, are not very good. If that one does show up, I want it though. Just cover my bases. It didn't show up. And the prayer should inevitably end with the eternal despair of its worshipper. TO979, TO980, the tree simply reaped from what it sowed, and TO985, and everything will be just fine. Wow, amazing. 3 tools. Those are certainly tools. We're taking the first one, which is probably the best one anyway. And now it is time for static lore. It was a strange phenomenon. It was a phenomenon in and of itself. There was nothing within the unit that could be detected with the naked eye. Just like those who had made similar claims some time ago, just because something cannot be seen does not mean it doesn't exist. The containment unit's square length was XXX meters, and this is the cognitive range of the abnormality. The only advice that can be given is to remain cautious and aware of your surroundings. Breathing will become impossible within range of the abnormality. Strictly speaking, the area will become a vacuum. Strictly speaking, the abnormality itself is the vacuum phenomenon. Record of death of the employee Chomsky. There was no way to confirm if the abnormality had left its containment unit or not. All of a sudden, Chomsky and the head stopped in the middle of the corridor and just stood there. The hallway was busy at the time, with many a person passing by. And of course, many of those people expressed their discontent for having part of the hallway blocked. Then, all of a sudden, Chomsky's body suddenly rose over 3 meters into the air. His arms and legs were awkwardly stretched out if he was being crucified. If his legs had still been on the ground, he might have looked as if he was performing an elegant play or doing ballet. Everyone in the hallway stopped to look at him. Then Chomsky started to scream. He screamed like a madman who had witnessed something horrifying. Nobody knew what to do. Some of our employees attempted to pull Chomsky down by the legs. He didn't budge. After that, Chomsky stopped screaming. A short silence followed, and Chomsky opened his mouth, attempting to mutter something. The 2 employees who were trying to pull Chomsky down started to scream. Blood poured down from his body. His arms and legs separated, leaving his limbless body floating in the air. All hell broke loose in that hallway, and everyone began running. How to recognize this abnormality is a matter that needs to be discussed further. Currently, we are researching ultraviolet technology that may be able to detect the abnormality using the eyes of shrimp, but the performance so far has been far from satisfactory. For now, a good method has been to have employees entering its containment unit bring a glass cup filled only halfway with water. They will need to place this cup on the floor while working. If the cup begins to slosh, threatening to spill over, the employee must stop working and leave the unit immediately. What a beautiful story.